Tamla was the only black woman at an all-white slumber party in the suburbs of Georgia. By morning, she was dead, and no one had a good explanation. It was supposed to be a casual get together, just some football moms hanging out, drinking, and unwinding on a chilly November night in 2018. They called it an adult sleepover, and on this night, the host was G.N. Myers, whose home in Cumming, Georgia would become the center of a mystery that still hasn't been solved. Tamla Horsford was 4 years old, a wife, a mother of 5 boys, beloved by her family and community. She worked for the county and was described as funny, loyal, and full of life. She loved dancing, football, and being a mom. And for her, this party was just another chance to unwind, just a night to relax. But what happened between that Friday evening and the next morning has left more questions than answers. Because Tamla never made it home. She was found the next day, face down in the backyard, dead. Her death was ruled an accident, but the injuries she sustained tell a very different story. But let's rewind. The gathering took place on November 3rd, 2018, in the upscale neighborhood of Cumming, about 40 miles north of Atlanta. Tamla had been invited by Jan Myers, whose daughter played football with Tamla's son. Jan invited 10 women and 3 men to the party. They were all white, all friends, all familiar faces, except for Tamla. She was the only one there that night who didn't, boy and damn. The plan was simple: pajamas, drinks, board games, football. Most of the guests showed up around 7 p.m. They snacked, watched the Falcons game, took selfies, and drank. Tamla, according to witnesses, was her usual bubbly self, laughing, talking, dancing. She brought a bottle of tequila as a gift and sipped from it throughout the night. Multiple guests recalled that she seemed happy and relaxed. By all accounts, there was no tension, no arguments, just a low-key get-together among friends. So how do you go from that to a woman found dead in the yard the next morning, with injuries so severe they looked like she'd fallen from a second-story building? Around 1:30 a.m., most of the guests had gone to bed. Tamla was reportedly still awake. Some say she went outside to smoke a cigarette on the back bed. She was never seen alive again. At 7:30 a.m., Jeanne's aunt, Madeline Lombardi, noticed Tamla lying face down in the backyard. She assumed Tamla was asleep or had passed out, but she wasn't breathing. She wasn't moving. She was dead. The 911 call came in at 8:59 a.m., made by Jeanne's boyfriend, Jose Barrera, a pretrial services officer who used his law enforcement credentials to pull up the report later that day. That move would get him fired, but more on that later. And I'm going to stop right here for just a second, guys, and let you listen to a little bit of this 911 call. As you'll hear, it's actually Jan who makes the call initially and then puts her boyfriend on the phone. So I'm just going to play about 60 seconds of this so you can get a feel for the tone of the conversation, and then we'll get back into it. But I do have the entire recording if anybody wants to hear it. So here it goes.
Forsyth County 911.
Hi, yes. I need an ambulance and the police to my home.
What's the address?
4450 Woodlet Court.
4450 Woodlake?
Woodlet.
Woodlet, okay. All right, 4450 Woodlet Court. What is your name?
My name is Jeanne Myers, Jeanne.
Okay, and your phone number is 609-668-5528?
Yes.
Okay, and that's off of Jotham Down Road, correct?
Yes.
Okay, what's going on?
We had people over last night. We were drinking. Most of us went to bed. One of them stayed on the balcony. She was drinking, and we just went outside, and she's laying face down in the backyard. It looks like, I'm guessing maybe she fell off the balcony, but she's stiff.
Okay, is she breathing?
I don't know if she's face down.
Okay, how old is she?
41. Here, hold on.
Hey, this is Jose Barrera.
Hey, have y'all checked to see if she's breathing?
She's not moving one bit. She's not breathing.
Okay.
I just try to assess her, touch her. She's completely face down in the yard. She is stiff.
Okay. Do you know if she,
Work.
do you see any blood or anything where she, are you there?
I am.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was outside.
It's okay. I'm not sure what happened to the line there for a second. Do you see any blood or anything to where, from where she fell?
I don't know if I should move her over. I mean, she is completely face down.
Okay. I mean, can you just check and see if she's breathing? If she's not breathing and you know she's gone, then just leave her where she's at. If she, okay.
1 minute. There is I'm noticing a small right cut on her right wrist.
So that's just a little bit of it there, guys. And again, I do have the whole thing if anybody wants to hear it. I did find it odd, and you can tell me what you think in the comments. But when Jian originally called, she's already trying to explain away like any kind of guilt or culpability on the part of herself or the other party goers. To me, that comes off as a little bit odd. And then when her boyfriend comes on, it does sound very calm about the situation. And I don't pretend to know what's going through anyone's head. I just found the whole conversation a bit odd. You guys tell me what you think. During the 911 call, Jose's tone is strangely casual. He says, "She's not breathing. I'm noticing a small cut on her wrist. She's stiff." He speculates she might have fallen from the deck, which is about 14 feet off the ground. But there's no urgency in his voice, no real panic, and no one attempts CPR. Ten was simply declared dead on the scene. At first, the death was ruled an accident, the result of a fall from a deck while intoxicated. But here's the problem. The injuries don't match a simple fall. Hamla had blunt force trauma to her head, a broken neck, lacerations on her face, cuts on her wrist, and a dislocated wrist. One of her fingernails was torn off. Her heart had bleeding in the right ventricle, not something commonly caused by falling. And perhaps most disturbing of all, she was found face down, yet there was no dirt or debris on the front of her clothing, as if she had been placed there. The official autopsy ruled Tamla's death accidental, caused by multiple blunt force injuries from a fall. But her family wasn't convinced. They ordered a second autopsy, this time by an independent pathologist. And what he found was disturbing. While the They claimed her injuries were consistent with falling from a 14-foot deck, the independent examiner disagreed. He found that the severity and the distribution of her injuries didn't make sense for a single fall. He noted the blunt force trauma to her head. He pointed out the deep lacerations on her face and the defensive wounds on her wrists and arms, and he emphasized that her neck had been broken, an injury not easily explained by the angle or height of the fall. Even more telling, the damage to her heart, bleeding in the right ventricle. That's not typical of a ground-level impact. That's more often seen in high-speed car crashes or extreme trauma. And then there was a detail that disturbed everyone. One of Tamla's fingernails was completely ripped off, as if she had grabbed at something or someone. Despite all that, law enforcement stuck to the original ruling. They claimed her blood alcohol level was high. They said she had THC and Xanax in her system. They said she must have lost her balance, that it was just a tragic accident. But her family didn't buy it, and neither did thousands of people online who began questioning everything. There were too many inconsistencies, too many strange details, like the outdoor security camera that malfunctioned that night, or the conflicting witness statements, or the fact that some of the guests wiped their phones. Then there was Jose Barrera, Jihan's boyfriend, and the man who made the 911 call. He wasn't just a concerned party host. He worked in the Forsyth County court system as a pretrial services officer. In just hours after Kamala's body was found, He used his professional credentials to access the police report. He wasn't supposed to do that. And when it came to light, he was fired. But that wasn't the only red flag. One guest claimed Cam went to bed around 1:30 a.m. Another said she was last seen at 1:47 a.m. headed to smoke a cigarette. One person claimed to have heard her laughing outside around 2 a.m., but no one actually saw her. And no one heard a scream. No loud thud, no signs of a fall, no call for help. And somehow, no one noticed her body in the yard until 7:30 the next morning, even though the house had windows overlooking that exact spot. The family began pushing harder. They wanted answers. They wanted accountability. But the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office closed the case. They said there was no foul play, no suspects, nothing more to investigate. In February 2019, just 3 months after Camel's death, the file was closed, and it stayed closed until the summer of 2020, because by then, the world had changed. The deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery had sparked protests across the country. People were demanding accountability, not just for police brutality, but for every injustice that had been swept under the rug. Tamla's story resurfaced. People began sharing it again. They caught out the inconsistencies, the way the case had been quietly closed, the racial dynamics, the lack of answers. And this time, people were listening. In June 2020, almost 2 years after her death, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation agreed to reopen the case. They began reviewing the original autopsy, the photos, the witness interviews. They combed through the evidence with fresh eyes, and the public waited and waited. But months passed, then years, and still, no charges, no arrest, no new conclusions. In February 2021, the GBI announced that their findings were consistent with the original investigation. They claimed there was no evidence of foul play, and once again, the case was closed. But many still weren't satisfied, because even if you believe the fall was an accident, even if you accept the toxicology report, even if you buy the timeline, there are still too many red flags. Why was there no dirt on Tamla's clothing? Why were there no screams heard that night? Why didn't anyone at the party notice her missing until the morning? Why was the camera footage conveniently missing? Why were phones wiped? Why was the 911 caller accessing the case files before it went public? Why does it feel so much like a cover-up? For Tamla's family, the pain has never gone away. Her husband, her sons, they still don't understand what happened that night. They don't believe the answers they were given, and they're not alone. The case of Tamla Horsford has become a symbol of questions that don't get asked, the investigations that don't go deep enough, and the stories that possibly could have turned out differently if the victim didn't move the way Tamla did. Was it a fall? Was it a murder? Was it a group of people trying to cover up a mistake that went too far? We may never know. But the story of Tamla Horsford still echoes, because the truth has a way of surviving, even when the system buries it. So here we are, years later, still facing the same unanswered questions, still hearing the same troubling silence, still wondering what really happened that night. What would justice even look like for Tamla Horsford? What would accountability mean for her family? Because the truth is, justice can't just be about a verdict. It can't be about a reopened investigation that closes again quietly. It has to mean something deeper. It has to mean admitting that something went terribly wrong that night. But there were actions taken that have never been explained, choices made that have never been justified, and a wife lost that deserved more respect and more answers, more care. Tamla was not just a victim. She was not just a headline or a hashtag. She was a mother, a wife, a friend. A woman who walked into what should have been a safe place and never walked out again. Her story isn't just about her death. It's about the aftermath, the way her life and death were handled, the way investigations sometimes seem to care more about closing cases than solving them, the way victims like Tamla too often get reduced to rumors, statistics for afterthoughts. And yes, it is about race, because in a quiet suburban town of Cumming, Georgia, Tamla stood out. She was the only black woman at an all-white gathering, and when something went terribly wrong, the investigation that followed didn't give her the respect or depth that many feel she deserved. We can't know exactly what happened that night, but we can know that a system designed to protect people shouldn't leave families feeling so abandoned, confused, and forgotten. So here are my final thoughts. We have a lot going on in this one, and not everything is a smoking gun. The boyfriend who checked in on the investigation the same day, I don't like it, and he deserved to be fired for it, but it can be explained away. Maybe he was just curious about what was going on. Being the only white person at a party, it definitely brings the issue of race into this, but it doesn't tell us anything conclusive. I've invited white people to parties at my house before, and I didn't murder them, right? But let's not forget they had a security camera out on that back deck. And how the hell does a security camera malfunction the one time someone might actually need it? The one thing that could provide some definitive answers. And why did people at the party start wiping their phones? Maybe there was nothing in there about murder or some nefarious scheme, but I'd be willing to bet there was at least some racial slurs on some of those phones they didn't want anybody to read. Those are the two things to me that seem the most damning: a conveniently malfunctioning camera and the phone lives. Of course, that doesn't mean someone at the party killed Tamla, but it sure as hell makes me think there was more going on than the investigation reported. The mass story hasn't changed. The police say they've investigated it twice and found no foul play. And that, of course, will continue to be their narrative. I feel like, though, if we applied enough pressure, we could get this case open for a third time and maybe get the feds, who actually know what they're doing, to take a look at it. So you tell me, what do you think happened that night? And is there a chance we can get this case reopened? I appreciate you watching, and I love you all. Bye-bye.